What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for ReZero Season 2. This is episode 24. With me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah, so, well, we're definitely heading into the finale for sure this time. So, I mean, obviously, this is the penultimate episode of the second season. So, pretty much, we just start off, like, immediately where the last one left off. I mean, the time frame for each segment is, like a little bit mixed up, like the last episode. So what was it? Was the first scene with Ram and Roswaal, or was the first scene with Amelia coming out to
the first scene was with Amelia coming out of the tomb, and like we saw in the last episode, she sees the sanctuary is once again covered in snow.
And then there's
and I think that's when she sees the villagers as well, because they're like, apparently they thought she was the cause of the snow. And
of course they're encased in a protective what was it, this ice sculpture thing. Apparently that was made by Puck to protect the villagers while Amelia was trying to complete her trial. And Amelia, of course, takes note of this and realizes what's going on, and that's where she goes out to try to find Roswaal and Ram. Of course, by the time we get there, that's when the scene starts to start snowing. By the time the battle ended between Ram and Roswaal, so Puck also realizes this as well, and he realizes that Roswaal actually started that spell even before Ram fought Roswaal.
Yeah. Apparently Roswaal had already caused the snow to fall even before they fought. And I was actually surprised, because I thought that by the last, by how the last episode ended, that Ram would be just completely, she was blown away by that explosion. And of course we find in this episode that she's still alive, but I guess just barely. And it seems like Roswaal is, I guess he's using his mana on where her horn used to be. I don't think... I'm not sure if he's, I guess he's not really... I don't know, do you think he's, healing her? Or,
I'm pretty sure he's healing her, but he just seems...
apparently that's...
Yeah, he just seems, despondent at the same time, even when Amelia shows up to see what's going on. No, actually, no. I think the first thing she does is head over to the tomb where... head over to, I think, the sanctuary tomb or something.
She heads over to the Ryuzu replication facility. Also, speaking of Roswaal providing Ram with mana, apparently that is what he was doing. If you remember in season 1 when they were meeting up at night, that's supposedly what he's been doing this whole time, is transferring mana to her at night. So that's, I guess, what those scenes were about. But yeah, so like you were saying, Amelia goes back to the Ryuzu replication facility and she finds all the Ryuzu clones there. And they're all standing in front of the crystal with the original Ryuzu mayor in there.
Yeah, but there's one thing I did catch on is, I don't know if you heard carefully, but it seemed like that...
Yeah, Echidna's voice came from... I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it came from one of the Ryuzus or where exactly it came from, but yeah, we hear Echidna's voice briefly, and I was kind of Amelia doesn't really seem to address it, so I don't know if she heard it or what was going on there. So I don't know what's up with that.
I mean, there has to...
Okay, so spoiler, I do hear that Echidna is going to come back later in the story, and apparently she does end up possessing one of the Ryuzu clones, so that could be foreshadowing of that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of that's kind of an interesting foreshadowing, seeing as they just snuck in the Echidna's voice into one of the Ryuzu clones. But yeah, so since Amelia ended up completing all 3 trials, that the sanctuary barrier is about to go down. So I think it was one of the Ryuzu clones that was trying to, I don't know, turn off the barrier, or just or the barrier just turning off on its own.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused as to what they were exactly trying to do, because one of them did say that if the core goes, then it'll cause irreparable damage. But we do see the crystal eventually disappear. So the core either the core just completely disappears. So not exactly sure where it went, if it did go somewhere, or like what happened to it.
I thought like the real Ryuzu would have at least got out of it since the barrier's going down.
I don't know if she can. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't read this part in the light novel, so maybe that'll clarify it some more. But in the anime, it's a little bit confusing as to what exactly happened there.
I mean, eventually, the crystal does end up disappearing, and then she takes all the other remaining Ryuzu clones over to where Ram and Roswaal are, and of course, Roswaal's still trying to transfer his mana over to Ram's forehead, and Emilia tries to talk to Roswaal, but like I said earlier, he's pretty much despondent, saying that like it doesn't matter anymore since like Ram pretty much burned the copy of the tome he was holding on to.
Yeah, he looks completely dead inside, and I guess that's because he was, for years he's just been following that what was written in that that tome. Yeah, but of course, like. Emilia basically is trying to talk sense into him, but he just won't listen. And then of course eventually the rabbits come, and Emilia tries to like fend them off, but there's just too many of them.
Yeah, so she tells like the Ryuzu clones to take both Roswaal and Ram back to the sanctuary tomb, and of course, like you said, like Emilia tries her best to hold them off, like until like Subaru comes in at the end, which of course like gets us to the next scene, back at the mansion, where the mansion's just like literally just burning down completely. Thanks to that fight between Elsa and Garfield. So, pretty much everyone else is already out of the mansion, with the exception of Subaru trying to look for Beatrice, and he once again finds the forbidden library, but of course Beatrice like once again tries to push Subaru away, and then of course we see another flashback of Beatrice talking to Echidna, with Echidna pretty much entrusting Beatrice with the forbidden library with all of her knowledge, and saying just to remain here in order to wait for this person that'll come and I guess take her or get her out of the library. I don't know.
Yeah, so we pretty much just witnessed the her just staying in the library for years, and her going like just it shows how long she's been there, because like we see like at least 3 I think different Roswaals, different generations of the Roswaal Mathers, and it's so that kind of shows how long she's been there. And she also gets visited by, of course, random people who, according to her, promised that they would take her out of there, but they didn't end up, I guess, being that person. So, she of course just never left. But she also says that she supposedly developed a deep connection with Puck, to where she refers to him as like a brother. So that's like, I guess, the only thing that she's really had any real connection with throughout the time she's been stuck in the library.
And then of course everything changed once Subaru came into the world.
Kind of. It also highlights that Subaru was the person who kind of seemed to sort of change things for her, and kind of like changed her outlook to where she believed that Subaru could possibly be that person.
But of course Subaru continually states that he doesn't believe he's that person that Beatrice is waiting for. I mean, it's possible that he could have been, but he just can't really confirm for himself that he really is that person.
I feel like I feel like he was trying to make a point to where like it's better that Subaru isn't that person, because he gave her a reason to leave other than just waiting for that person like she was told to. It kind of shows that she, I guess, trying to make a point as to where she should make her own decisions and not just do exactly as she was told by by Echidna. I think Subaru more or less says that in one episode. So I think that was kind of the point of Subaru trying to get her out of there and saying he's not that person, because I mean, there's really no way he could be, because by that person, I'm just assuming that it literally would be like, you know, a knight in shining armor. Like, you know, he would have to dedicate like everything to her. He would have to put her before everybody else, which is, as we know, not how Subaru really sees her.
Unless Echidna really foresaw something like this happening. Unless I don't know, it's that could be a possibility. But.
Well, I should. Speaking of Echidna, we should mention that, like, we finally see the real Echidna. We see her eye, but that's all we really see of the rest of her face in this episode. Like, her eyes, like Beatrice reflected in her eyes, but we still like have half of her face.
I mean, she still has her like her bushy eyelashes that, you know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how different she must look in real life compared to how she looks in the dream world, because Amelia went as far as to say she didn't even recognize her. So I'm wondering how different she looks, because I mean, from what we've seen of her in how she looked in the real world, she looks almost exactly the same as the way she looked in the dream world. So I mean, it can't really be that different, but I mean, we just haven't seen the rest of her, so I guess it's kind of hard to say.
But you know, with Subaru continually doubling down of pretty much telling Beatrice, just make your own decisions. Like you can come with me and make memories, even though like I won't be around, for much longer than like how long that Beatrice would live. But of course, like he'll live on with within her memories, like for eternity, I guess. So. Eventually, like this does eventually convince Beatrice to go along with Subaru back into the sanctuary to help fight off the great rabbits, that Amelia was trying to fight off at the end of the episode. So,
yeah. Well, he does get pushed out. At least, he does get actually kicked out of the mansion once, and he has to end up running back into the mansion and finding the library again. He ends up going to so I should mention, somebody actually pointed out on YouTube that apparently I guess in the light novel or the web novel, there is kind of an important thing that they cut out in this episode, and that is the fact that supposedly Elsa is actually still alive, because in the light novel, when Subaru is running back through the mansion, he encounters Elsa, but she is, I guess, described as being like a zombie, like she's mindless, like she's not like how she used to be or something. I guess she's crawling around, because they say that she's not able to really walk, and she attacks Subaru, but because of the state she's in, she doesn't manage to land a hit on him. So she's just kind of crawling around like a zombie, I guess. And the Guilty Low is also still alive, but he's barely alive, and he also goes after Subaru. But supposedly Elsa actually ends up killing the Guilty Low in the state she's in, before Subaru ends up getting to the door that's in the secret passageway.
I think that might be because of time constraints for this episode.
Yeah, probably. I mean, this is already a long episode, so I mean, as much as I kind of wish they would have shown that, because I would say it is a little bit important just to show that Elsa is actually still, I guess, technically still alive, but just in not a good state.
Yeah, I mean, like we've seen her like recover from such grievous injuries.
Well, okay, so I should also mention that when Subaru does get to the door in the light novel, because of the backdraft, when he opens the door, Elsa ends up following him there, and you see Elsa get, I guess, consumed by the backdraft. So she gets set on fire, I guess. So she's pretty much, I don't know, I guess it's kind of up to interpretation what happened to her after that, because I haven't heard about if she's still alive or not in the light novel, but yeah, I mean, that would have been interesting to see, but I guess it's not too much of a big deal that they cut that part out.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they showed what happened to her at possibly the epilogue of the next episode.
They could rearrange that scene and put it, maybe have it play out later in the series.
I mean, the show has rearranged, a couple scenes like earlier on. I think it was the start of the second core, I guess. Yeah, so I think it's possible they might show what happened to Elsa possibly by the next episode.
Yeah, but yeah, of course, like you said, he does end up convincing Beatrice to come with him through a lot of effort, basically. Her library is completely falling apart by the time he actually ends up convincing her to come with him. And Beatrice resists quite a bit at first because she really wants a Subaru, or Subaru to be that person, but of course, as we know, Subaru can't be that person, so she pretty much accepts that Subaru is someone she can rely on, but he's still not ever going to really be that person. So of course, Subaru offers her his hand. She ends up taking it, and then it cuts back to all the people like watching outside of the mansion, and we see like what looks like a shooting star go up in the sky, and I guess that's Beatrice, like Beatrice's magic, just like transporting them back over to the sanctuary.
And that pretty much leaves us in another cliffhanger until next week to see what happens in the next episode.
Yeah, because of course, they get back to the sanctuary. We see the tomb is, of course, surrounded by the rabbits, and this is pretty much what happens in the opening as well, just a little bit differently, because the tomb's surrounded by the rabbits, and Amelia's trying to hold them off, and Subaru and Beatrice just appear behind her. So yeah, that's pretty much how the episode ends. I'm just going to assume that both Amelia and Beatrice will probably successfully be able to fend off the rabbit. So yeah, I'm not really sure what else we can really expect. I guess the next episode might be sort of wrapping up the plot of this arc, as well as being somewhat of an epilogue, I guess. But yeah, this has just been a incredible, just a great season so far. I haven't really been disappointed with anything, I think. I mean, there are some cuts here and there that I kind of some things I wish they would have kept, but pretty much everything was adapted really, really well, like from what I could tell from the parts that I have read so far.
Just the amount of dedication that they put into the show, like every single episode just goes as far as like almost 30 minutes long without that there's no commercial break in between.
Cutting out the opening and ending animations too. They did that in this episode as well. They cut out the ending animation this time too.
Yeah.
So yeah, they pretty much just they pretty much go above and beyond for ReZero. So it's kind of, I honestly at this point I wouldn't be surprised if they did eventually announce a season 3, because it definitely seems like they're passionate about doing ReZero. So hopefully they do.
I mean, it's possible we'll find out about it by next week if there is going to be a season 3, or if they might work on a separate project like the X novels.
Yeah, there's that too. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about this episode. It was pretty much, as opposed to last week's episode, which was just really action heavy. There wasn't much of that in this. It was more just dialogue heavy, but it's more so about Beatrice's development as a character. And that's what I feel like a lot of the season has been about, is like developing some of the characters we were introduced to in season 1 and the characters they introduced in season 2. And just kind of having them go through their like character arcs. Amelia going through her character arc, and Subaru, of course, going through yet another character arc, because he just goes through multiple different character arcs in ReZero. But also just the side characters going through that as well, and us learning more about them.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the finale for next week. I mean, hopefully we'll get some more hints as to what's going to happen pretty much later in the story, assuming if there is going to be another season. Or
yeah, I mean, we did kind of get that, I think, in the Amelia's vision of the future. If at least if that wasn't supposed to be like a what if scenarios or something.
And also the fact that Pandora is still lurking around somewhere in the world.
Yeah. Pandora basically seems to be like the final boss of ReZero. So yeah, but yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say.
This is a pretty exciting season so far. I mean, I know I really wish that we could have at least seen this, kind of last year, assuming if like they were planning on releasing the entire season like last year had it not been for the COVID pandemic. But so far, like,
yeah, I think they say they would have been done by now.
Yeah,
or at least,
I mean,
I guess done with.
If you remember, like they had to delay premiering this like by 3 months, because they didn't have enough time to work on it since the pandemic started, and then they had to, and then of course like we had to wait, between like an extra 3 months in between cores in order to see the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining though. I mean, it was definitely worth the wait. Even considering we had to wait so long in between the first season. And this one.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, that all being said, until next Wednesday, we will see you all next time for the finale.